Welcome back to Industry Insights with Ajai Chowdhry. What you're really getting at here is we need an ecosystem, right? We need an ecosystem of startups, academia, large tech companies, government to drive this. So how are we going about it? Or how important that ecosystem is in your sense?
Without the ecosystem, we won't be successful because we just can't leave the startups where they are today.
Yes.
We did an experiment like this with Meti a couple of years ago when we set up something called an Electropreneur Park in Delhi University. It was a disaster because Delhi University never came up and helped. We moved that thing from there to IIIT Delhi. And that is where we are actually developing this whole concept of academia, research, startups and design. And that design village, etc. concept, we've already started in IIIT.
Yes.
And we have a couple of people sitting there helping them getting it going. So that's what we are at this moment trying to do.
Sure.
As far as electronics is concerned.
Okay. And you've been in the past, you've been the chairperson of the FICCI Startup Committee. Could you tell us what your role was there and how did you...
See, in FICCI Startup Committee, the key thing that I was telling everyone within FICCI was that there is no association in this country that represents startups. So why can't FICCI create a separate brand for startups? We took that initiative to some extent, but now I guess they're carrying forward that whole thing within FICCI because then I finished my term. But that's really what our objective was, that somebody must represent startups. Every other thing is represented in this country except startups, which is really not a good thing.
Yes. And one of the key aspect of the ecosystem is availability of regular funding to startups. And in the last 2-3 years, we've been seeing this funding winter where startups have shrunk their plans, reduced their growth, fired people. So how can you think about creating an ecosystem that makes this funding regularly available to startups whenever they need it, and not be so dependent on VCs and international VCs making the funding to them?
You see, there are few things that we have done well and few things we have not done well. And I think this correction that happened in the last 2-3 years is very good for the industry because it has taught startups the value of money. As I said before, they used to just blow up money.
Yes.
When they got huge bunch of money from VCs, they all blew up. Even the VCs are now being much more particular that I want to see you profitable in 3 years, 4 years. You just can't keep growing without profit.
Yes.
So this is a very good thing that's happened.
Yeah.
And a lot of this funding has started to come back now. It's not that money is available today,
Yes.
I can tell you. Global money is still a little bit of an issue into this country because we don't have the right policies for startups. So let me tell you about that. An angel tax issue has been pending for last 7 years. We've been fighting to get it removed. There's no other country in the world that taxes angels.
Yeah.
They actually give them incentives. So it's a totally opposite of what we should be doing. The other thing that is still pending for startups is that the biggest thing for startups is an ESOP. In India, the law says that you have to pay your tax when it gets vested. It's completely ridiculous. Only when they sell their stock should they pay tax.
Yes.
So these couple of things are still work in progress and we are fighting it like hell. Just now we've submitted another note to the government which has now got to finance and we are wanting to get that happen because I'm part of the Indian Angel Network.
Yes.
And from there we are really working on this real hard to get this changed. The other thing that we are saying is that this whole issue of capital gains, the way they have created today, is not a good thing for global money. So I was talking to a global Indian investor. He says, I would love to come and invest into Indian startups because people are so bright out here. But I can't because your laws are totally against us. The capital gains tax stops me. In America, if you invest into a company, and you have and your valuation grows up dramatically, there's no capital gains tax.
Yes.
So that's a great incentive for somebody to invest. We should be making those kind of changes here, which are required to be done to get more and more global money also in here. And the other thing that is happening for startups is that we haven't yet opened up insurance and pension funds to come and invest into startups. That is a huge amount of money sitting there. And if the government can take a view that they are allowed to put money into VCs or directly into startups, it will be a terrific change for more and more funding being available for startups.
And I think this also emphasizes the need for having a regulatory or having a body or a lobbying body for a startup which is not there.
So today we are in a manner trying to do it through an Indian angel network, but that's not good enough.
Yes. So I just wanted to ask you about some emerging technologies that are being coming, right? We talk about how AI is revolutionizing, industries, how things that improving productivity. People can do a lot more with much fewer resources. I wanted to start by asking, what impact do you see AI will have on the software industry in India? The software industry in India, it is primarily service based. Some companies like HCL have moved into the product space, primarily service space. So what impact do you see there in terms of productivity, in terms of scale, in terms even for employment?
So actually, productivity-wise, AI is going to have a very, very positive impact. Because Gen AI will assist people to do things a whole lot faster. But Gen AI will also take away coding. So that part of the software business will definitely get affected. But I think it will get replaced with more and more Gen AI type of business. And I'm seeing a lot of growth happening there, with all software companies now declaring huge backlogs in Gen AI. So I think all of that will continue to make the software services business keep growing. The area that is going to definitely get impacted is the BPO area. Because there with co-pilots and stuff like that, you may not need people to answer phone calls anymore. So those kind of things will have an impact. But definitely, as a country, there are going to be headwinds for services. Because services will move away from different countries to other countries. There is a movement taking place today from India to nearshore. And that's a movement where Indian companies are themselves participating. They said, okay, if you want it nearshore, we'll set it up for you. So Indian companies are smart. They've already done that. All HCL and all of us are actually doing that today to overcome this issue. But I think there is a definite challenge of AI for the country. And we need to be well aware of how to make that change happen from services to products.
Sure. And I wanted to talk about another emerging technology. You were the chairman of the mission governing board for the National Quantum Mission of India, right? So what are the key goals and initiatives there in that mission? How are you thinking about it?
You see, quantum technologies have existed for a very, very long time. And quantum mechanics is something that pretty much every engineer knows about. But what has happened in the last 10 to 15 years is that there has been a clear movement towards making quantum computers. And this movement is very clearly around this technology, where if you look at your classical computers, they worked on binary, 0 and 1. A quantum computer works on 0 and 1. So it's in a manner parallel processing, which means it's much, much faster. But the development of a quantum computer is a much more difficult task because it is not based on just having a silicon chip and you develop a product around it. That's what classical computers are. Here it's a much different ballgame. You need to really have multidisciplinary capability. So you have to have physics guys. You have to have people who understand materials, people who understand electronics, people who understand other areas of engineering. So all of this combined is what makes for a quantum computer. So it's a much difficult task. But National Quantum Mission's objective is to have 4 areas we want to work on. One, create a quantum computer and layers on top. Create quantum communication, create sensors, etc., and then create materials. So we've divided it into 4 thematic hubs that we are creating. And we'll bring in researchers all over the country to participate in making each of these areas happen. So we will have one thematic hub for computing, one for communication, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So that's what we are working on. It's a 8-year project,
Yeah.
and the funding that's been provided is around 6,000 crores, where 4,000 crores sits with the quantum mission, 2,000 crores sits with Department of Space and Department of Atomic Energy and Department of Defense. So we are all working together to make each of these things happen. And our objective would be that we genuinely take from basic research to, in a manner, applied research and pre-commercial research. And over a period of time, we've set ourselves targets to achieve that. So we must have products at the end of the day. The good news is that about 8 or 10 years earlier, couple of projects of DST, and DST has really taken a fantastic role here. They have really pre-commercialized, done pre-work for the National Quantum Mission.
Yeah.
So they created a program called Nano. They created a program called Quest. That created a lot of scientific capability in quantum. And so when we are starting National Quantum Mission, it's not from scratch.
Yeah.
We've already got 600-700 researchers who actually got deep knowledge on quantum. So we'll bring all this capability together and hopefully meet this target of making products. And one other thing that has happened in parallel to this is that last 8 or 10 years, startups have started to take interest in quantum.
Yeah.
And there are close to 60 startups today in quantum technology. So we actually did something recently in the mission. We called the startups and we said, we'd like to chat with you and see what you're doing. So 60 we knew, then we called in 14. And with these 14, all three of us with various scientists sat together to evaluate what they were doing. And we were very, very pleasantly surprised with the work that is going on. Some of them have already reached commercial level and they're marketing their products.
Yeah.
It's like, for example, there's a startup in Bangalore called Qnu. They're already making QKD-based products today, which are world-class. So they can even enable a banking organization or a telecom services provider or an electrical grid to be made quantum secure.
Yes.
And that is something which is very interesting to see. So I'm very positive that this will result in creating some world-class products out of here. It's a very, very quick-moving technology. So it's something that we have to be very clear about, that we have to move fast.
Yeah. So we talked about how India can make products. We talked about electronic manufacturing. We talked about AI. We talked about quantum computing. I wanted to tie all of this in and ask you this question. So how should India shape the future? How does the future look like? What should India do to create much more value than what we have been creating so far?
Yeah, I think the last 25 years of India has been all about services. Now the economic policy should move from just services to products. And we must convert this country to a product nation. So about 15, 20 of us got together 2 years ago and we created a small little think tank. And we called it the Vishwamitra Economic Policy. And we started writing the new policy for India. What should India be 25 years from now? Because what happens within the government is every time they only think election to election. 5 years, 5 years. Yes. So, you can't create a country of a different scale when you just think 5 years.
Yeah.
So we started to work on that, and it's still work in progress. But we've had 2 very nice offsites where we got together 45, 50 people. We brought in people from industry, research, education, government, and they all spent time with us 2 days in an offsite in Pune. And we've been developing this policy. Now we are socializing this policy. And we are going to the central government to say, okay, you have to make a very major change. And the critical aspect of this policy is that we've identified about 10, 15 areas where India should put its money in making products in India. And for this, we need a lot of R&D. The challenge in India is that private sector is very poor in R&D. We hardly do any R&D. We are a country of traders. We go to China, pick up a product, put a logo and sell it. That's not what the country should be next 25 years. We need to change it. And the only way we can change is by where we do more R&D in the country, design and make products in the country. So we should make our two-wheeler EVs in the country. We should make our drones in the country. We should make our space products in the country. When I go to startups who are making drones, they're making the drone. Inside it is all Chinese components. That's not what we should be doing. We should make all those components. And that is what we are trying to communicate and socialize with the central government and state government. And one major change we are asking the central government to make is put public money into private. It's never been done in the country. They have made some small little, things within biotechnology where they've done some work. That's how vaccines happen. And in addition, they've done some work in defense in IDEX, where they've done something like what DARPA did. But we need to have a full-scale plan to have money from public into private. And a large number of economists in the UK are clearly saying this is how America happened. This is how Korea happened. This is how UK happened. And India is going to happen only this way. So we need to get the government to relook where their money goes for R&D. Today, all public money goes into public. And that is not showing results. So that is something, it's work in progress. But now I'm talking to various states and telling them, look, guys, you need to change. Hyderabad was an IT city. It now needs to move beyond IT. And the only way to move is to create clusters around newer products. You should have a space cluster. You should have a two-wheeler cluster. You decide what is good for you. So let's say Telangana, genomics will be a fantastic area. So each of these areas they need to identify. So we are going to various states because actually once this whole thinking really grows and the central government accepts this whole idea, then states is where the action will be. So we are trying to now socialize with states.
I wanted to close this conversation with two personal questions, right? First, you said you walked away from operational responsibility at HCL a decade back. You don't see many founders walk away like this, but you did that. So that was the first question. So what motivated you? But the broader question is, what gets you going, right? You're doing so many things now. You're into nation building, have aspirations to make India into an electronic superpower. What gets you going?
So actually, 12, 14 years ago, I went to the board and said, look, I want to get off the treadmill. I just can't keep on doing quarter-on-quarter results. It's very, very painful and taxing and stressful. So I've done it for 40 odd years. I've done enough. I want to do something different. So that's really what I did. And in 2 years, they selected a CEO and then I was out. But I then created a whole bunch of education institutions. So I worked with Uday Desai to create IIT Hyderabad here. I was the founder chairman, he was the founder director. And we created a very different IIT, which I'm very, very proud of. Then I created IIIT Naya Raipur, again from scratch. And then the government gave me an opportunity to go to NIFT in Ranchi, which is actually a foundry type of institute, a very old-fashioned institute. And when I walked in there, I said, my God, you guys have been doing the same thing for 40 years. This is a disaster. You need to change. So I said, okay, let's make this an Industry 4.0 institute. And we should change the name of this institute. So we got the name changed to National Institute of Manufacturing. So few of these things that I did, I really enjoyed doing it because education is something that I was very, very fond of. And as a matter of fact, I taught entrepreneurship in IIT Hyderabad for close to 7 years. So education piece I did for about 7-8 years. Parallel to that, I was doing a lot of work on startups. So I'm part of a few funds. I'm part of Indian Angel Network. I personally invested into 70 startups. And again, as I get closer to youngsters, I feel much younger. And so it's a lot of fun working with startups. So that's something that really keeps me going. But one of the things I write in my book, which is called Just Aspire, is that you need to be a rangist, which is really what I have tried to do for myself. So in a manner, it's like a tea. The length of the T is the deep work that you do of your own area, like IT or electronics. The top of the T is where you must have other interests.
Yeah.
So, for example, I was a big space enthusiast from literally 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I actually heard on Voice of America when Armstrong landed. So, very fond of space.
Yeah.
Then I am very fond of music. I've been singing since my college days, and I continue to sing every week today. I have a group that is called Lutf, which during COVID we converted to Zutf because it went on to Zoom. So on Zoom, 150 of us have a group, and about 30, 40 meet every Sunday, and we all sing Hindi songs, old Bollywood songs, and we enjoy doing that. So, if you have things like this that you do, you become a rangist, and it's a worldview that you get.
Yes.
And that's very important for everybody, because if you just do one thing, you're not really doing justice to your brain.
Yeah. I mean, this has been a fascinating discussion. Thank you so much for being part of the Industry Insight, and I just hope that you keep going. Keep going and implement many of these policies that you talked about, create new policies, and shape the direction of how this nation moves towards a greater value creation. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah.